Quiet, quiet friends. I have a tale to tell before the tavern closes tonight. I have come a very long way and seen so many places. I've heard many stories, and I'm happy to be here now to share them with you. So gather round. The story I have for you tonight is a personal one. It is the story of my travels and the many places I have been. I was born here, in the Waywind Mountains, where evergreen trees coat the mountains and plains in a verdant cloak, where the rain is almost unending, only to be replaced with snow in the winters and the sun when we're lucky. Belgravelt, the Wild Kingdom. Our nation was built as an ancient empire cracked under the pressure of its size. We built our homes in the shadows of new kingdoms and empires. We found a home in the valleys of the mountains and the cover of the trees. Some of the finest warriors in our world came from Belgravelt, and all over this world tales are told of the great heroes who were born in the rain-soaked mountains. When I was 12, I left home, first bearing south as a servant for the mercenaries of Le Novrin, the Talon Knights. We crossed the mountains, and there before me I saw a massive desert of wild winds and sandstorms that raged as the rain does here. They showed me sprawling cities where the storm was held at bay by the strength of a lone warlock. I know many of you believe magic to be a myth, but I assure you it is real, and nowhere is it stronger than over the mountains to the south. In these cities I encountered great colleges, teaching not only magical arts, but knowledge of our world that felt like magic. The greatest of poets in the desert gave me my lute and taught me the art of song before I departed. From there we traveled further south, through a plain of yellow grasses and not a tree to be seen, into a jungle under a never-ending monsoon. They had built their homes high into the tallest trees I had ever seen, to protect them from the floods of mud and rain that came almost daily. Great contraptions of wood, rope, and stone were used to help them ascend these monolithic trees. There I saw war for the first time, not between men, but between men and beasts. Great monsters live in that great forest. To survive, their people have become trappers of unrivaled talent, using strange machines and contraptions they had forged to fend off even the most dangerous of beasts. I also saw kingdoms that had torn down their forests to create more and more industry. They had scared the monsters away, but with no canopy to protect them, the monsoons and floods brought havoc on their homes. Further south we found ourselves descending into a darkened swamp, where the monsoon still raged but often brought hurricanes and tidal waves to the sunken wetlands. The people there were not too welcoming of us, but from what the mercenaries told me, these swamps were known to hide thieves and swindlers of all sorts, and right outside their bay to the east lay a chain of islands home to magnificent ships and adventures unparalleled. I heard many stories of these sailors, although I've yet to see these islands for myself. What I did learn of this great swamp was that it holds many mysteries, caves, and stories where some venture without fear. By now I was 16 and had been all over the southern nations, so I left my companions and traveled north alone. After many long steps, nearly 70 days of travel, I could finally see our mountains on the horizon. But instead of coming home, I wandered east towards the coastline. Once over the mountains, I saw green fields blanketed in constant wind, only to be interrupted by rain and the occasional snowfall. I wandered the kingdoms of the east, learning of their gods, their war on magic, and the desert nations of the south who had mastered such things. I learned of beasts, not of nature, but of evil magic that had come across the ocean and terrorized the land. I walked to the furthest eastern point and saw the remains of an ancient empire forgotten and destroyed, sitting on land with no storms, only silence and dread filling its skies. According to those I met, when the empire fell, it released a great evil across the sea, and the war against those creatures would rage forever. I headed up the coast, to the north, finding the fields replaced with forests of mixed trees. There I saw cities sprawling and prosperous. Wise were their leaders and cunning was their speech. These kingdoms had mastered their diplomacy, their battlefields all fought first in letters. The rain there was often lighter than it is here, calm and peaceful. However, when winter began, the snowstorms were brutal and unending. They were kind there, but behind every word was a new rule, a new clause, digging for knowledge and control. I stayed one winter with them, but soon left. To the furthest north, the forest began to fall and the mountains got closer to my west. Before me was a blizzard that rarely settled into an easy snow. Kingdoms had been built in the forbidding frost and the shadow of the mountains. There I met warriors who dressed as knights and fought like dragons. Those who turned war into art, and yet were still reluctant to draw arms. Wise battle lords who knew what their swords could do, and abstained in favor of peace hidden in the endless winter storms. There I learned the truth of all of our peoples. Although we have made our homes in the West, our people came here from the East as one nation and broke apart out of fear when our empire collapsed. When we arrived in this land, the elves, dwarves, and beastkin races had already made their homes here, but were kind enough to allow us a home here as well. As centuries have passed, we have forgotten their kindness to us and our kinship with each other. Though we speak different languages, have different gods, and different ideals, we were all once one humanity. The lines we have drawn between each other and the races that are native to this land have divided us for so long that we have forgotten our story. Even those who were already here, the many races that were here first, who used to be so plentiful in this land, have all lost their history as the winds of war can blow away all stories. Our wars against each other are wars against ourselves, and this land we have built our nations upon was once without the great storms that ravage it now. We brought the storms to this world, but that story is for another day. I had tried to travel further west, but navigating the mountains is a task no one has returned from. For to the west lies a great wasteland of crags and caverns, rocks and perils, snow unending and wind unforgiving. It seems the corruption we left back in the east has wrapped around to the western side of our new home and has begun to eat at the land like a plague. The monsters we unleashed are beast-like, but their bodies do not fit and they cry out in pain. I have learned of their origin, of the cataclysm we brought upon our old home, but I will hold on to that story for now as well. Soon I returned to our mountains. The nations we share borders with are all strange and unique. Some are run by bandits, lawless and wild in the snowy peaks, and others are home only to those outcast. These nations that border us are all unique in their own right, but to summarize them all in one story would be difficult. To the south there is a love of magic or innovation that unites people. To the east they are all united by their gods and their war to survive the endless, pained creatures from the sea. And to the north they have spy masters and soldiers, a shared history of battle and nobility. However, here in our mountains, the only story we share is one of the outcast, the hidden. I saw tiny cities run by rodents, and massive towers where one could spend centuries learning the secrets of magic. I witnessed dens of thieves and quiet towns home to only the kindest of people. Now I am 24, and I have come home through the other wild nations that hide in the Waywind mountain range. Through places that no man can call himself king of, and places where the only true king is magic. I thank the goddess that I made it home safely, and now that I have a tome of tales from every nation to share with you all. I have seen many monsters and many heroes. I have learned of the magic offered by the goddess and the magic humans can conjure for themselves. I have seen warfare, and I have tales of peace. I cannot wait to tell them all to you. Good night, and thank you. Legends of Lorelei is a narrative fiction podcast by Livewire Multimedia Stories. If you enjoyed what you just listened to, please consider contributing to our Patreon. If you would like updates on this project or any of our other projects, come follow us on Instagram at Livewire Multimedia, on Tumblr at Livewire Media, or subscribe to us on YouTube at Livewire Multimedia Stories. Thank you for listening.